Hello students, good evening. We are going to start with NCERT classes from today. Yesterday we had the introductory session regarding the NCERT. So there we studied the importance or the significance of NCERTs. Okay, how to read the NCERTs books as well as the different books which are there in your NCERTs. Okay, regarding civil services examination. Today we are going to start with our first class, which is related to the history. So we are going to start with 6th standard history book. Okay, the book name is History Our Parts First. So that is the first part of your history book, 6th standard. Okay, so this would be your first class for history. All right, myself Pushpendra Singh, and I will be taking your classes. All right, so let's begin with the history class today. All right, so what about the history? Okay, how can we know about the past? The first point that is coming to your mind is how we can infer our past, or how we can learn our past, how we can know our past. Okay, if somebody asks you, how do you know that in the past that thing happened? How do you know that our Indus Valley civilization was there on the banks of Indus? The point is that, or how would you know that the people ate this, say, rice, barley, the people wear that clothes? Okay, the house, the type of houses they lived. Okay, so the point is that if you know, if you want to know about the people, the civilization, you have to know about their eating habits, their clothes, right, where they live, and etc. and so forth. And moreover, you must understand there were different type of people who stayed basically in the different parts of the world. Okay, the few people who stayed there, they made some inscriptions, manuscripts which was survived for long. Okay, these manuscripts were written, say, on the palm trees, or some of the basically leaves which may not be survived because of insects or maybe some sort of a decomposition process. But few of those the manuscripts, inscriptions were survived. And moreover, those inscriptions and manuscripts also limited to the selective number of people. For example, kings, queens, those who conquered the land, right, they basically inscribe those inscriptions or manuscripts. But still we can say that we cannot infer correctly about the life of, say, hunters and gatherers, farmers, rural peoples. But we can infer some insights about those rulers, those kings, queens, isn't it? But we cannot say precisely about those craft persons, artists, and etc. and so forth. We can know about them only through those inscriptions and manuscripts. Okay, because those people were basically dependent on the ruler, definitely, because the ruler basically ruled the country or ruled that area, particular area, and through the manuscripts and inscription we came to know about them. All right, so this is the first slide. We must understand what can we know about the past. So we have the limited amount of the window where we can look into those manuscripts and inscriptions about the past. All right, then obviously there are another sources also. For example, you can say the dead remains of the animals, the dead remains of, say, the food, say, the grains, right? So those dead remains, through some sort of a dating techniques, we can also infer that this would have been the eating habit of that civilization. This would have been the living, the habitations would be for that particular type of civilization. Otherwise there is no other way. Okay, so where did the people used to live? Where did the people used to live in the past? So the point is that previously the population was very limited, okay, in the past. And moreover, the people used to stay all along the rivers or all along the banks of the rivers. Okay, for example, the Indus Valley civilization was basically flourished all along the banks of Indus, isn't it? Like that, the earlier people also flourished all along the banks of, say, Narmada. Okay, then along these rivers only the civilizations flourished, right? Now the earliest people which was there, they considered to be the skilled gatherers, because you must understand, in the past, when you say in the Paleolithic time, in the Paleolithic culture, there was no such great inventions. The people were dependent on the stone tools, and there was only very primitive technology on that time. So they were mostly considered as a hunter and the gatherers, but they were definitely the skilled gatherers. Okay, so skilled gatherers means they basically collect the food. They basically collect the food items. But you must understand, they were skilled enough to know about the wealth of the plants, the wealth of the forest, because they used to collect those roots, fruits, timber from the forest for their food, right? For the food and sustenance. So that is why I said they were skilled gatherers on that time. Now, over the period of the time, people started, rearing the animals. They started domesticating the animals, domesticating the plants like sheep, goat, cattle. The people started living in the villages, isn't it? But initially the people used to roam from one place to another place, right? They were wanderers, right? They were hunter and gatherers. They used to switch over the places, right, in the search of food, right? Okay, now there were places where the you can also say that, say, for north of the Vindhyas mountains are there, where the rice was first grown. It was found through some dating techniques that the rice, the remains of the rice have been found, and it was inferred that the rice was first grown to the north of Vindhyas. So that is how we can learn about those people which used to stay all along the banks of the rivers. Okay, now let's look at some brief descriptions about the Indus tributaries, Ganga and Ganga its tributaries. So first of all, you must understand the few of the ancient cities which flourished on the banks of these rivers. For example, you have the Indus Valley civilizations. So you can say that around 4700 years ago, some earlier cities would have been flourished on the banks of this Indus and its tributaries. All right. Then around 2500 years before, 2500 years before, the cities also flourished on the banks of Ganga and its tributaries. Okay. But the earliest period, you can say, it was Indus. It was Indus. But around 2500 years ago, also the cities was flourished all along the banks of Ganga. And moreover, the rivers, or to the south of these rivers, or south of this river Ganga and its tributaries, the region was known as Magad. Okay, the Magad region is there, but you must understand this region is now located in the state of Bihar. So the region which basically covers the south of Ganga and its tributaries, which are located in the Bihar region, are still considered as a Magad. It was basically a kingdom. It was basically a kingdom on that time. Okay, so earlier settlement was started all along the Ganga and its tributary around 2500 years before. All right. Now let's look at the movement of the people. How the people, why the first of all, first thing is coming in your mind is why people travel from one place to another place. So you must understand the people used to travel from one part of the subcontinent to the another part. Okay, that is quite true. Okay, they were considered as a wanderer, hunter and gatherers, right? Now there was many reasons for this movement. The first reason is they would have moved in search of livelihood. Okay, the first thing is that they would have moved in search of, say, from escaping from the natural calamities, say disasters, floods and droughts and etc and so forth. There could be the second reason. Or in the initial period, the men would have been marched with the armies conquering the another land, and they would have settled over the period of the time. There could be a third reason. The fourth reason is the merchants who were there with any kingdom, they would have moved to the another kingdom right after the conquest of the land. So you can say that the merchants sometime also traveled with the caravans. Okay, they carry valuable goods from one place to the another place. They distribute those goods, they sold those goods to the different places. Likewise, there may be some sort of a religious teachers. These preachers would be moving from one place to the another place, from village to village, from city to city, from town to town. Okay, started giving religious instructions and all sort of things all along the way. So there can be multiple reasons for the movement of the people. for the movement of the people. And over the period of the time, slowly we started discovering the land. Okay, so slowly we started discovering the land, and people started moving for the various regions throughout the world. Okay, now let's discuss the names of the land. How the name of the land, say we are talking about the India, how the name of the land was basically evolved. So you see here the two words that our country is known for is India or Bharat. Okay, our article 1 of the Indian Constitution also says that India, that is Bharat. So the both names have been adopted by our constitution fathers, right? That is India and the Bharat. It was a discussion in the Constituent Assembly that what should we put, or what should we keep the name of our country. Few people says that we should put the ancient name, that was Bharat. Few people say that no, we should put the modern name, that is India. Okay, it was not decided, or it was not consensus between the two, so it was decided to take both the names. So that is why article 1 of our constitution also says that India, that is Bharat. Okay, now let's understand how these two words came. So the word India, which came from the word Indus. Okay, the word Indus itself came from the Sanskrit word that is called Sindhu. So that means in Sanskrit, the Indus is called as Sindhu, right? You are getting my point. But the India came from Indus. And Indus is known in Sanskrit basically Sindhu. So people started saying, instead of Sindhu, instead of Indus, Sindhu, Indus. So it started saying basically Indus. And moreover, the Iranians and the Greeks, which was having some traveling history. Okay, they people also started traveling throughout this Indus River, or all along this Indus River. So they came to northwestern side of Indus River around 2500 years ago, and they themselves started familiarizing themselves with this area, as well as the Indus River, and they started calling this area as a Hindos or Indos. Getting my point? In their own language, in the Iranian language or the Greek language, they started calling the area which was lying northwestern side of Indus as a Hindos and Indos. Okay, and the land which was there to the east of the river, that was started calling as a India. So they started calling India as a land which was lying to the east of the river Indus. Okay, now this is the history, a brief history about the name called India. Let's understand the brief history about the Bharat. The Bharat was used for the group of the people who lived in the northwestern side of say Indus River. So it was basically the people who used to reside in the northwestern part of Indian subcontinent was called as a Bharata. It is a group of people. Okay, and this name was mentioned in the Rig Veda. Its name was mentioned in the Rig Veda. Rig Veda was basically the earliest composition in the Sanskrit that was composed around 3500 years ago. So that was composed around 3500 years ago, and this earliest composition was basically also gave this name. कितना जुड़ा हुआ है, कोई बात नहीं, ज्यादा नहीं है, ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं, ज्यादा नहीं है, इसको हटाओ, गद्दे को तो नहीं है पानी, गद्दे कितने की ली है, कोई बात नहीं, इसको एक काम करो, इसको नीचे तरफ ले लो, उग जाएगी इसको, इसको पर थोड़ा सा नीचे दो हाथ से, तो इनको अलग तो कर दो, दूसरे को गीला नहीं करेगा, नीचे वाले पोर्शन को, इस वाले पोर्शन इस पानी की जगह घर कर देंगे, ठीक है। All right. So that is what the name India and the Bharat basically evolved. The India and the name Bharat have been evolved over the period of the time. Okay. So now you must understand how would you find out about the past. Okay. How would you find out about the past? So first of all, you can infer about the past only through the books, or so that you will search for the books. Okay. That would have written long ago. Then only you will be able to analyze the past. Otherwise, it will be very difficult. And the second is you can also read this manuscripts. What is this manuscripts? Okay, manu means it is a Latin language. It is basically the statement which is written by the hand. Okay, so that is called manuscript. The manuscript means a script which is written by the hand. Okay, so that manuscript you can basically refer in order to know about your past. Okay, now these manuscripts which was there, and which was few of the manuscripts was survived also. These manuscripts used to written on the palm leaf. Okay, there is a tree called palm. The leaves of the palm tree, the people used to write on the leaf of the palm tree. Okay, now, or the people used to write on the bark of the tree, which is also known as birch. This birch is basically also grows in the Himalayas, in the Jammu and Kashmir, Uttarakhand, and upper reaches of the Himachal Pradesh also. Okay, so apart from this palm leaf, the birch tree or the bark of this birch tree was also used for for writing of these manuscripts also. Now, over the period of the time, since it is thousands of the years, the manuscripts was eaten by the insects, or they would have decomposed, because they are consist of the organic material. Okay, so that is why we can say that they are basically decomposed over the period of the time. But certainly few of the manuscripts have been left out or have been survived. Right now, these books, these were basically written, right? Some few of the religious books or few of other books which was written, these books covered the tremendous vast amount of the topics. For example, few of the books basically related to the religious beliefs, practices, the lives of the kings, medicines, and the science. So these books basically covered the significant amount of the subjects. Now, these knowledge which was related to the past is also written, or also came out through different type of composition. For example, epics, poems, plays. So these were basically also came through different versions of these poems. Now, these manuscripts, or these the previous writings were written mainly in the Sanskrit. Few of those writings were written basically in the Prakrit. The Prakrit means the language which was spoken by the ordinary people, as well as few of them have been written in the Tamil. So these three languages have been used, either Sanskrit, Prakrit, and Tamil. Okay, these three languages basically used for writing these, the manuscripts basically. All right. Now let's understand the inscriptions. Have you understand the manuscripts? The manuscripts are written on the palm tree leaves, or the bark of the birch tree. Okay, which was specially processed, and they were used for writing by hand. So Latin word for manu is basically for writing by the hand. Okay, now inscriptions, they are the second way through which we can also infer about our past, is through the inscriptions. Okay, so we need to infer those inscriptions, or we need to study those inscriptions. So what is the difference between inscriptions and the manuscripts? So these inscriptions are also writings. These inscriptions are also writing, but they are inscribed on the hard surface. They are inscribed on the hard surface, like stone or metal. Okay, so they have been inscribed on the hard surface. The surface should be very hard. So they are comparatively hard, and they are non-biodegradable. So they survived over the period of the time. So we have lot of inscriptions which survived over the period of the time. For example, Ashoka's inscriptions. Okay, these were survived for longer period of the time. Okay, those who study these objects are called archaeologists. Okay, so there are different set of the people who study those objects, manuscripts, inscriptions. They also study the remains of the buildings which are made up of stone, bricks, isn't it? these archaeologists also study or also explore, excavate, right? Excavate means to dig under the surface, right? They also excavate to find out those tools, weapons, say ornament, pots, pens, coins, etc. So that means the archaeologists are those people which involve in excavation, exploration of the Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic remains, and also they study the remains of those buildings which are made up of stones or bricks. Okay, so these are the people or these are the professionals which study this type of things. All right. Now, why our book says our past? Okay, what does the significance of saying our past? First of all, you must understand. So the past is basically, that signify that the past was different for different group of the people. Okay, the past was not similar for all people, but it is different from different people. Okay, so you can say that the lives of the herders, wanderers, right, the food gatherers or the farmers are different from those who were residing on that time, say kings or queens. The same thing still followed. Okay, even today the people follow different practices, different customs in the different parts of the country. Okay, so that is why I said, or that is what the book also have the title our past, which signify that the people follow different practices, different customs in the different part of the country. All right, and these practices and the customs are basically related to the different people. Okay, different people, and these people are also, you know uh, have certain set of different type of practices and the customs which are also even significant today. All right, how would you know about the dates? How would you know about the dates? Okay, so you must understand these dates are basically, counted, say, from the birth of the Jesus Christ. Okay, the Christ was a founder of Christianity. Okay, so the dates are basically generally assigned to the birth of the Jesus. Okay, the Jesus Christ was the founder of your Christianity. All right, so we basically, count those dates from the birth of the Jesus Christ. So all right, so all dates which was there before the birth of the Jesus Christ. Okay, for example, if I say from the before the birth of the Jesus Christ, for example, we call that term called before Christ. We call that term called before Christ, right? So the date which was added, say for example, if I say 2500 years before Christ, that means it is before 2500 years. Okay, from the birth of the Jesus Christ. If I say 2000, say we say to say we have basically 2020 AD, okay, or after Anno Domini, or we say after Christ. Okay, so that means it is after the birth of your Jesus Christ, after the birth of your Jesus Christ. So the CE, sometime the CE is also used instead of AD. CE, what is that? CE means common era. Okay, and BCE instead of BCE means before common era. Okay, so sometime the instead of BC we used BCE because the many countries have used this term. Okay, so instead of AD, sometime we also used CE, that is common era. So you might have heard, or you would be able to or you will be learning in our history lectures that many, say for example, if I say the Indus Valley civilization was flourished around 2500 years ago, then when you compare with the birth of the Jesus Christ, that means from the birth of the Jesus Christ 2500 years before the Indus Valley civilization was there. When you talk 2020, that is AD, we call them after the birth of Jesus Christ. All right, so that is how you will basically use that term, that is AD and CE. Okay, let's understand hunters and the gatherers. So the people who used to live in the continents, that was as early as 2 million years before. Okay, initially the peoples were called hunter and the gatherers because on that time there was no technology, There were only primitive technology, primitive tools. They had only stone tools, right? These stone tools were basically used for hunting the animals, for example, for catching the animals, catching the fish, birds, gathering the fruits, roots, nuts, seed, leaves, stalks, and eggs, isn't it? So these were basically tools which were used basically for the different, for gathering of those foods item, isn't it? So these hunter and the gatherers also started moving from one place to another place, and for various regions. What could be the various regions? For example, if hunter gatherer started staying at one place, let's say, over the period of the time, if the food is exhausted, obviously to the hunter gatherers will be moving to the new place, okay, for the new place. And let's say the another reason could be, say, let's say the hunter gatherer is dependent on the flesh or the meat. The animals also roam from one place to another place, so that hunter gatherers used to follow them, okay. The next could be the reason could be because of your seasonal changes. For example, the rivers, many rivers are seasonal, many rivers are basically perennial. So those seasonal rivers, where all along those rivers, uh, there were many plants, right, which flourish during the seasonal time, when there is a, say, in the paucity of the water, or during the lean season, or during the drought season, the hunter gatherers also used to move out from that place. So there can be various regions through which the hunter gatherers also started roaming from one place to the another place. Now, how would you know about these people? This is the another question. How will you know about these people? Okay, so first of all, you must understand, you can know, or archaeologists have found some of the things which hunter gatherers used to use or made. For example, they use basically some tools, basic tools. For example, the tools are made up of stone, wood, bone, right? These tools, right, have survived. Some tools are survived, not all tools, right? So we can infer from that tools that this tool would have been used by the hunter gatherers, right, in our past. So through the study of those tools, okay. Now, these stone tools which was used by these hunter gatherers, they used to cut the meat, they used to cut the bones, okay. They used to scrape the bark of the trees, they used to take out the, basically say, the animal skins, okay, to chop the fruits, roots, and etc. These basically tools would have been used, okay. Now, may have been attached to the handles of the bone or the board. Sometime these tools, when these hunter gatherers started, evolving over the period of the time, these stone tools would have been attached to the, say, wood or the bones, to make the spears, arrows, for the hunting purposes, right? So over the period of the time, these spears and the arrows also started evolving, okay. Many of the caves, for example, Bhim Betka cave is there in the Madhya Pradesh. Even today, these Bhim Betka cave basically used by the hunter gatherers on that time, right? These caves were basically have some cave paintings. These cave paintings depict that these hunter gatherers used to hunt the animals very precisely, okay. Through these paintings, we basically inferred that these hunter gatherers used that primitive tools made up of stones, okay. They used to hunt this animal, okay. They used to kill that animal in such a way that, and people have that much technology. So only through these paintings we came to know, through this Bhim Betka caves, which are still lying in the Madhya Pradesh, okay. Now let's understand the sites. What is the site? Okay, so first of all, now the site can be of anything. The site can be of anything. You can say that the site is a place where such remains of the things are found. What are these remains? For example, you can find the tools, you can find the pots, you can find the buildings, okay. So the site is a place where the remains of the things are basically found, okay. These sites or these tools are made up of, or these sites are made up of, definitely, or these sites basically consist of the people, where people used to live, and these people used to use some of those, those items like tools, pots, and buildings. Only through that we came to know about those people, okay. Now, some of these sites are found on the surface, okay. some of these sites are buried under the earth. Some of these sites are even buried under the water, right? For example, if you go basically to the Kashmir region, many of the sites are found under basically below the earth, right? That shows that the people, because of to survive in the harsher cold, the people used to go down. Even some of the grains are found under the surface and above the surface, which shows that people used to cook those grains both above the surface and under the surface, depending upon the climatic availability. If you go to the Karnool caves, Karnool is the place in the Andhra Pradesh. If you go to the Karnool caves, the traces of the ashes have been found. These ashes indicate that the people uh, used to uh, used to have the knowledge about the fire. Okay, these people use that fire to cook the food or to cook the flesh or meat and etc. or any other thing. So through these different examples, we came to know that the people have knowledge about the fire, the tools, the pots, and the buildings which were basically found in our past. Okay, now let's understand there are three types of the cultures. One is called Paleolithic culture, second is called Mesolithic culture, and the third is called basically your the Neolithic culture. Okay, so this Neolithic have been by mistakenly placed, so you don't have to refer here. I have kept the separate slide for the Neolithic. So first we will understand what is Paleolithic. Okay, so there are three successive stages. You can understand that the first stage you can say Paleolithic. Okay, that was the primitive stage. Okay, the word Paleolithic basically have been made from two Greek words. Okay, these two Greek words, one is called paleo. Paleo means old. Okay, and lithos means stone. So that means old age, which is mainly consist of the stone. Stone means only the stone tools are used. These stone tools are not finer. These stone tools are not finer, but they are primitive tools. Okay, they are also not polished. So that this is the example that in the Neolithic period also the stone tools were used, but these tools were become more finer. They started more painting, right, coloring and etc. and so forth. But in the Paleolithic period, the stone tools were very primitive, and they are mainly consisting of very coarse tools. Okay, now when you compare the time period, you can say that it extends from 2 million years ago to around 12,000 years ago. That means from 2 million years ago to 12,000 years ago, the whole period was known as Paleolithic period. Okay, the Paleolithic period from 12,000 years ago to 10,000 years the Mesolithic, and that this period, which was very large itself, 2 million years ago to 12,000 million years ago, which was known as the Paleolithic period. Now this period itself is divided into three different sub periods. So one is called Lower Paleolithic, another is called Middle, and the third is called Upper Paleolithic. Okay, this is completely within Paleolithic period. Okay, now this period covers 99% of the human history, because you see here from 2 million years ago to 12,000 years ago, from the evolution of the human, from the evolution of the human to up to recently 12,000 years ago, this was completely known as Paleolithic, and it covers around 99% of the human history. But very few things we know about the Paleolithic time period. All right, so this is about Paleolithic. You must understand it is also known as Stone Age, because it is mainly consisting of the stools, which is consist of mainly stools, or sorry, mainly stones, not of say metals or any other thing. Okay, now let's understand Mesolithic. Okay, during the Mesolithic period, the environmental changes started evolving. Okay, this environmental changes basically from 12,000 years ago to 10,000 years ago. What was happens is, before that you have the glacial period. Okay, but now what happens is the interglacial period was started. Interglacial period means the freezing and thawing process was stopped. So there was the sea started rising up because of the greater temperature increment, right? Because of that, the different culture was evolved. This culture was known as Mesolithic or Middle Stone Age. Now, this Mesolithic period also has some of the tools which are known as microliths. You must understand these microliths are also made up of the finite stones. Apart from that, they are also made up of bones and the wood. So that means these tools are mainly consist of bone and wood, right? And also the small amount of tools that was made up of stone was also continued. Okay, so but you must understand these tools become more finer, right? They become more adaptive in the nature so that the people can use them very efficiently. Okay, the third is basically called Neolithic age or Neolithic period. In the Neolithic, the next stage was started from 10,000 years ago to the present. Okay, this is called basically Neolithic period. Now, during that period, the domestication process was started. Okay, exactly, the domestication process was started around 12,000 years ago itself. That means during Mesolithic period itself, the domestication for animals, the domestication for the plants was started. Okay, in the different parts of the world. Now, you can say that virtually whatever the plants, animals we domesticate today, okay, or we cultivate today is as a result of the domestication which was started on that time, and some of what happens is, say for example, those animals, for example, say dogs, the dogs which was not a threat to the human survival, the human started protecting the dogs, because the dogs will be useful for, say, protection of their kettles. For example, if there's a sheep or goats or any other, the buffalo, which may be protected because of the dog. Okay, from basically some of the animals, say for lions, from the lions and tigers. So people or the humans started domesticating those animals which are more friendly to the human, rather than which are basically not good for the human survival. The same thing happens in terms of the grains also. The people started domesticating those grains. For example, wheat and barley. The wheat and barley was some of the earliest plant that was grown by the humans, and these wheat and barley was earliest because the people was adaptive to that new domestications, to their needs. So it satisfy the requirement of the humans on that time. So we started domesticating of such animals and the plants, and they still continue. Some of the earliest plants to be domesticated were wheat and barley, that I've already discussed, right? And people started growing the plants also. Okay, now you must understand, over the period of the time, during Neolithic period time, when the people started living in the villages, they started feeling that if they want to cultivate certain crops, they would have to stay at one place. So the culture for living in the villages was started during Neolithic period time, because when they have to grow a crop, they would have to stay at one place for, say, 3 to 4 months. For that, they need to make all sort of elaborate arrangements, say for, first of all, for growing the crops, cutting the crops, and all sort of different type of processes are there. So the need for the to staying at one place was evolved. So that is how the culturation process was evolved during the Neolithic period of the time. So culturation process was started, and people started living in the different villages. Okay, so the domestication of the animals, domestication of the crops has led to the necessity of the humans to stay at one place. Now uh, during that time also, the tools were used, but you must understand, these tools become more finer, they become more polished, and also they have fine cutting age means they become more uh, adaptive to the needs of the humans. And moreover, the mortars and the pestles were used for grinding those grains. Okay, so for example, in some of those civilizations, the grains which was half crushed or full crushed was found. Even the grinders or the mortars or pestles have been found in those civilizations, right? Only through that we can infer that we have sufficient amount of knowledge regarding this the grinding of the grains on that time, or it started evolving on that time. Okay, a kind of earthen pots also have been found. Okay, what was the need of earthen pots? You must understand, when the humans started domesticating the animals, when the humans started domesticating the crops, when these crops was grown and they were cultivated, they need to store in some place. Okay, where they will be stored, ultimately they will be stored in some earthen pots. Okay, so that is how the earthen pots concept was also evolved, and people started storing those grains and all sort of things. You might have heard about Harappa civilization, where in the Mohenjo-daro and Harappa civilization, in the towns basically have been found the granaries, where the people used to store their food or their grains in the granaries. Like that, in every civilization, the need was evolved for these pots, which was basically used for collecting and storing the grains and other essential items which can be used during the lean period. All right. Then something decoration have been started. So these pots have been more decorated, which were used for the storing items, but that was not there in the Mesolithic or in the Paleolithic period time. This is just an comparative analysis of the three. Okay, and we started using these pots for cooking food. Okay, must started adapting of the modern culture that we have evolved over the period of the time, and especially those pots will be used, or those vessels will be used for cooking the grains, especially rice, wheat, lentils. Now, which have become over the period of the time have been important part of human civilization, important part of the human civilization. So that is how you must understand these three parts. One is called your Paleolithic, that started from 2 million years ago to 12,000 years ago. Okay, that are again divided into upper Paleolithic, middle Paleolithic, and lower Paleolithic. Then you have basically Mesolithic. The Mesolithic period was from 12,000 years ago to 10,000 years ago, because I said you have the whole earth was coming out from the glacial period. So now there was interglacial time. So the warm period have been coming out. So people, or so the new things have been started evolving over the period of the time. In the Neolithic time, right, it is also called, the the new culture or new stone age. You can say that new means new, and lithic means the stone. So new stone age, that is made up of the more finer tools. Okay, that are more polished, that having fine cutting edge. The people started domesticating the animals. People started you know constructing those earthen vessels for storing the foods. Right, the vessels are more decorative in the nature. Right, people started using the pots for cooking the food, say rice, wheat, and lentils, and etc., and so forth. So that is how we can infer that all such things are started evolving over the period of the time. Right, so these were some of the ages which basically we evolved. Okay, so these were basically some of the glimpse of your the first two chapters that we studied today. Okay, so we basically studied, so roughly you can say that how would you understand the past? You can infer your past through the two ways, either by reading manuscripts. The manuscripts are basically the term which is basically meaning hand. That means the scripts which are written by the hand. Okay, the manuscripts are generally written on basically on the leaves of a plant that is called palm tree. Okay, so the palm leaves have been used for writing the manuscripts, or it is used, or it is written on the bark of a birch plant. A birch is a basically temperate plant which is grown in the Jammu and Kashmir and upper regions of Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. So the bark was used basically for writing the manuscripts, but you must understand they are biodegradable, and moreover the insects would have infested on them and they would have not survived over the period of the time, and that was the reason the manuscripts are not survived for so long period. But we have another inscription, we have another set of clue, that was inscriptions. These inscriptions are you know uh, are basically made up of, or sorry, they have been inscribed on the hard surface that may be made up of stone or metal. So that is what they would have survived for longer period of the time. And archaeologists are those people which basically study those objects, say manuscripts or inscriptions. They also study the remains of those those items which are made up of stone or which are made up of bones. They also excavate, they also, you know, explore the things which are either on the surface or below the surface. They also study the weapons which was used during the primitive time, during the hunter gathering, or during, you know, the different type of pots, ornaments which were basically used on that time. All right, so these were some of those the glimpse of the first chapter of your the history book. Okay, so we will again start the history tomorrow. Okay, so thank you very much for attending this session. Thank you.